Midway USA brand product designers have one straightforward goal: develop high-quality, technically sound products and deliver them to customers at reasonable prices. If you are immersed in the shooting sports industry and pay close attention to every single detail, you know our products are built right and stand up to everyday use. Who has shooting mats and range bag systems to hunting clothing and just about everything for the outdoors? Log on and shop 24/7 with super fast shipping. MidwayUSA.com.
Want to plan your next fishing trip without the hassle? FishingBooker.com is the best way to find and book a fishing charter anywhere in the world. Whether you're chasing trophy fish or just looking for a family day on the water, Fishing Booker makes it simple, fast, and secure. With thousands of experienced guides, verified reviews, and 24/7 customer support, Fishing Booker takes the guesswork out of planning. Visit FishingBooker.com and book your trip today. Fishing Booker. Fishing trips made easy.
Welcome to the Casting Across Fly Fishing Podcast. I'm Matthew of CastingAcross.com, where I explore the quarry and culture of fly fishing. This is episode 330 of the podcast, which means it is the 33rd edition of Fly Fishing Accusations, opportunities for me to interact with you, the listeners, the readers, feedback, questions, comments, and even accusations. And today we actually have one. They come every once in a while, and so I definitely want to include them since that is the name of the episode itself. But before we get to those good pieces of feedback, I did want to mention that since the last time I recorded, I have welcomed another child into this world, a fifth boy. So I am thrilled to pieces and blessed beyond measure. God is very, very good, and we are excited that we now have 5 boys. I've been telling people this means I can keep buying more and more fly fishing gear because somebody's going to be using it. One of them's going to need it down the line. But it's awesome. Kids are great. Kids are so good. We need more kids in the world, and we need more kids raised to enjoy the outdoors and also other important things. But anyway, all that to say, let's get into this week's feedback. So the first one is an email, and it's from Jeff. And Jeff writes, I'm writing because I hope you can advise me on beginning to tie flies. My doubt is what flies I ought to start with. I like a good balance of simplicity and utility. Attempting a simple fly that I can't use or a killer fly that I can't tie would cause early discouragement, something I'd like to avoid if possible. For reference, I fish primarily for brook trout in Shenandoah National Park and elsewhere in the Blue Ridge Mountains and points west. And then my second uncertainty is where I ought to buy materials, hooks, threads, dubbing, etc. My closest independent fly shop is an hour and a half away, so I imagine that buying online is an acceptable option. Are there any online retailers that you recommend? Thanks for all your help, and God bless, Jeff. Well, Jeff and I were able to have a good back and forth as we were able to work this out, and then I got an awesome picture from him just a few weeks ago with some of the flies that he's tied, and so that's exciting to say at the beginning, the middle, and the end of the process. But this is a great question, and one that certainly Jeff asked, but a lot of other folks ask as well, and one that I asked back when I started fly tying, and then the times that I stopped and started over again, this same questions I asked. And so we'll take them one at a time. The first one is his question of what flies he should start with. And I made the suggestion of a few. One is a woolly bugger, one is a simple hare's ear, and one is a dry like a renegade. And so what this gives you is the full panorama of flies. You got your streamer, you got your nymph, and you got your dry. Now, why do I recommend these 3? And if you go back, actually, in the podcast archives, there are podcast episodes where I do go through and talk about the flies that I would recommend and how I would go about it. But why did I recommend these? Well, he has the very astute observation because he's tried fly tying before and because he wants something that he can kind of use right away, that he doesn't want to be discouraged. And I think this is a very valid point. If you buy a fly tying kit and you see that beautiful Hendrickson or Adams on there and you try to tie that, it's going to be terrible. I mean, there's a good chance it's going to catch some panfish and probably even some trout, but you want something that doesn't just have some function to it, but also looks good. And so that's why I recommended those flies. If you can wrap material around a hook, then you can tie a woolly bugger. But as you and I both know, there's good woolly buggers and bad woolly buggers. But even bad woolly buggers are going to fish pretty well, as long as you get the proportions right and as long as you make sure that the materials hold fast. And that's the kind of stuff that isn't going to have a huge cosmetic change. So yes, you can have a really pretty looking woolly bugger where the hackle is spaced well, where the proportions are perfect, and where it is finished well. But if you use a bead head or a cone head, then the finish can be whatever. But that's a fly that anyone can tie. A simple hare's ear, and here's where I'm sure I'll draw up ire from folks. But you don't need to have a wing case on that thing. You can just dub the body and make it wicked buggy and have a little tail, and it's going to fish just fine. And in fact, one of the things that I've liked to do when I'm in a hurry, when I'm tying flies really fast, is I don't even I tie in my tail, I dub a body. I will then take some UV epoxy of a dark color, like a dark blue or even a red, and just make that my wing case. And then after that dries, after I hit it with my UV light, then I'll tease out the area kind of immediately behind the hook eye, and that gives me that profile that you would get if you took a little bit more time to tie a little bit fancier of a fly. But you know what? If I'm fishing those things and they're bouncing along the bottom, I'm going to lose them anyway. So I don't mind tying them a little quicker and dirtier. And that's something where you can now work on your skills of what it means to make a nice dubbing noodle and how to get that to go on the hook and have it tapered well. So that's a second suggestion. Third suggestion I put is the Renegade. And the Renegade is, again, if you can palmer a material, if you can wrap a hackle, wrap some pheasant tail, some peacock herl. Wait a minute. Yeah, peacock herl. Then you're going to be able to go out and fish that fly and catch all the brook trout in the world. It's not the most glamorous fly. It's not my favorite fly, but it's a dry fly that is certainly functional. And it's a little bit more involved than like a Griffith Snap, which is going to be a great fly, and you're going to be able to catch all sorts of fish. But Renegade, it makes you focus on your skills a little bit more. So those are, and I told him, even the first dozen, if they're super ugly, they're going to catch brook trout and they're going to catch panfish. So there's plenty of other flies you can add to that, but that's my suggestion. So then his second question is where to buy materials. So he mentions that he's an hour and a half away from an independent fly shop. And so I get the struggle, because I think what Jeff acknowledges, and I think what most of us acknowledge, is that you want that expertise that comes with walking in saying, this is what I want, and expecting that you're going to get some good straight answers and good straight advice. And that's more often than not, that's the case. But a few things that I said. One, don't feel bad about going to, like, there's a Bass Pro Shop or a Cabela's nearby. They're going to give you everything they need. And secondly, call up a fly shop that has a good online presence and have that conversation, and then just say, I just want sizes, I want specific products. If you could get online and kind of let me know what I need to put in the search bar to get exactly what I need, then you can have that personal interaction and order that product up. So that's my suggestion. I think you can get fly tying stuff from anywhere. I like to buy stuff from fly shops. I like to buy stuff from the hobby store, and I like to buy things sometimes from a big box store because I'm already there doing something with the kids. So I'm not going to say, no, I'm not going to buy rubber legs at Bass Pro Shop because I'm going to wait till the next time I go to the fly shop. I'm going to drop the $3.50 when I'm at Cabela's and be happy. So, but I would say if you want that good combination of ease of use as well as independent fly shop, just give them a call and then place that order online or even over the phone. So thanks, Jeff. Very good email. And again, he tied up some great looking flies, and he actually invented a variation on the Copper John that looks like it will absolutely catch all sorts of fish, especially in the wintertime. The next comment is from Jason, and Jason commented on a article that is one of probably my most popular articles of all time on Casting Across, which is kind of my obituary or memorial for the late Ed Schenk. And what he comments is fantastic. It is a link to an eBay store run by a gentleman named Bill Skilton out of Pennsylvania. And I believe that Mr. Skilton was given the remnants of the Schenk estate and was selling things off on behalf of his family. But Bill Skilton has a great eBay page. He has all sorts of stuff and has a lot of fly tying materials. And so definitely go there. But more than that, more than just the Ed Schenk fly rods and stuff from his estate, eBay is a wonderful resource. And I don't talk about it enough. And it's interesting, actually, today I was looking at some gear that I've owned for years and years and years, And I bought a lot of stuff on eBay back in the day, things that were new, things that were gently used. And it is a fantastic opportunity to get into things that you wouldn't ordinarily find, especially if you're looking for vintage fly fishing gear. Now, beyond gear, there's all sorts of stuff. I mean, right now, I pulled up a page, and the Bat and Kill Large Arbor is a reel I still fish. It's a reel I bought probably in 2002, and it's one of my favorite reels. And I'm seeing 1, 2, 3, 4 of them, and they're not cheap. I mean, it's crazy. These things are going for still $250, $300. I think they were maybe 150 when they first came out. But then I'm seeing just a number of other reels that are high quality. I'm looking at custom fly rods that are in the $250 to $300 range. I'm seeing antique bamboo rods that are under $1,000. I don't talk about eBay enough. And if you're a new angler, definitely hop on there and check things out. You might take a flyer on something that seems completely random. You might be looking for one particular style of fly rod. I just think about some of the old gear that I love. I love my Orvis T3. I love my Sage Graphite 3. And if those broke, I couldn't go to the local fly shop and get one. I'd have to get on an auction site. And there is some reassurance about using a site like eBay where there's a little bit more security and a little bit more consistency on what you can find. But I really appreciate being sent that link by Jason and hopping on there and looking at stuff. I have an Edge Shank fly rod. I actually showed it off in a recent book review video. Otherwise, I would have been very, very tempted to buy one of the ones that was put on Bill Skilton's YouTube page, or excuse me, his eBay page. Especially because this one is a little bit more refined. The one I have is like a prototype, if as it were. It was given to a family friend. But there's so many cool things. Again, just going back to Bill Skilton's eBay page, it's Skilto, Skilto, and all sorts of stuff is on there that you can peruse, and just everything from really high end capes, feathers to old fly fishing gear. Just awesome stuff. You can get yourself in trouble by wasting time. And you can also get yourself in trouble by spending money. But definitely head over there if you are at all interested in fly tying stuff and vintage fly fishing things. All right, so I promised that I had some accusations to share, and this one comes from a gent named Bob. So I wrote an article called 2025 Show Report New Practical Gear. And I just rattled off a handful of examples of things that I saw that I liked. And Bob wrote, and before I get to it, I went back and forth with Bob on email, and very, very gracious, very understanding. He was blowing off steam, totally get it. But this is what he said. Some of the new equipment is pretty awesome. However, the drastically increasing price for some of the new equipment is absolutely ridiculous. There is no way that I'm ever going to pay $1,400 for a fly rod or $274 for a freaking net. Just isn't going to happen, and it isn't worth it. I talked to Lefty Cray about rods years ago. He scoffed at the prices and pointed me to TFO rods. He wasn't honest in his review of rods, and sure, he was part owner of TFO, but his review of rods was spot on. This coming from a guy who could cast a fly line 70 feet with 2 fingers. The high prices are going to kill the industry, make it hard for beginners to enter the sport, and make it so that only obnoxious jerks out there. Why not spend your time reviewing gear that real-world fly fishers can afford to use? All right, so I told Bob, and I'll tell you, I completely agree with half of his take. There are some pieces of gear out there that are just ridiculously expensive, especially since some of the blanks on some of the really, really high-end rods are being used by other manufacturers that aren't as reputable or aren't as established, and they're charging like 40% less for them. So I don't disagree. But from a market standpoint, if someone's going to spend $1,400 on a rod, then you're going to make a $1,400 rod. So I kind of get it from that perspective. The rod prices are pretty crazy. I think real prices are what is absolutely, out of control on some of these machined reels, especially if they're made in the United States. That's the thing that kind of really gets me. and makes me keep going back to that $100 to $200 price point for trout reels and that $200 to $350 price point for saltwater reels. Not going over that. But at the same time, I think that we're in a day and age where the entry level gear is just outstanding. I feel like the entry level gear that you can get today, like for a full outfit, I'm thinking of some of the pre-assembled outfits from some of the major companies, Orvis or Redington or companies like that. And what you get out of the box for $200 is probably the same quality as something that was like maybe $350 or $400 years ago. Now, again, everybody's casting stroke is different. Everybody's expectations and what they get is going to be different. But I think like the options are so stinking wide open these days on quality fly fishing gear. I mean, I remember when I started, and again, this is going back 25, 26 years, and what you would get for $100 was not very good. Now there's a handful of fly rods that I've cast that are $100 that I absolutely enjoy. I've got a couple actually I fish regularly. It's just because of their specs and how they fit into certain circumstances that I engage in, and I think they are really really good. And that's one of the things that I try to encourage folks to do is like don't feel like you have to spend that money because it's out there. It's kind of like I'm shopping for a minivan right now, and it can be very discouraging to see the fully loaded Hondas and the fully loaded Toyotas and thinking like that's an astronomical amount of money. But I don't need that. My family doesn't need that. I don't have to look at that car and think this is the standard. It's nice. It's really, really great. I wouldn't scoff at it if one showed up in my driveway, but that's not necessarily the standard. That's a thing that's out there. That's an option that's out there. And so when you open that catalog and you see that very first fly rod, when you open up like the I don't know if you get a fly rod catalog anymore, but when you see that first thing that's displayed, you open up a website, you open up the Sage website or the Winston website or the Thomas and Thomas website, and what's on that splash screen? That very first rod is going to be the newest, the latest and greatest, and it's going to run you between $800 and $1,200. Now, I'm not going to say that it's not a great casting tool because I've cast most of those rods and they are exceptional casting tools. But is it to a point where the average angler is going to notice a significant difference under normal angling circumstances compared to maybe something in that mid-range, that $400 to $700 range? Absolutely not. And then for a lot of folks who are either new or they're just not super nuanced in their casting, are they going to notice the difference between those rods and the rods in the $200 to $400 range? Probably not. So I guess just going back to Bob's comment, I just want to acknowledge that, yeah, there are things that are crazy expensive. But it's interesting that he mentions TFO because I spent a lot of time at the TFO booth at one of the fly fishing shows this year, and their prices are getting higher and higher as well. And funny, and this is no shade, as the kids say, against TFO, but one of the last really nice rods that I bought was a TFO rod, and I didn't like it. Now, there's a lot of TFO rods that I absolutely love, but it just didn't fit my casting stroke. So it's kind of interesting that, every one of us is different. Every one of us has a value to expense kind of math that we do in our heads, and it's going to change all over the place. And so, get the gear you want. And again, I have a great email exchange with Bob, and I really appreciate his perspective. And he acknowledged, like I said, that he was blowing off steam. But don't get down because you see something that's expensive. Just remember that there's a very good chance that the folks that are spending a silly amount of money are fueling the industry so that there are more approachable and accessible options for everyone as well. Now, I am certainly not an economist, and I'm also not that deep on the inside of how these companies run their books. But just anecdotally, I feel like what's available today at the lower price ranges is more beneficial than the discouragement one sees by the high end of the upper range, especially of fly rods. So again, thank you, Bob. Thank you, everyone else who emailed in and messaged in and had some great comments on some of the content that's on Instagram. I've been posting my stuff everywhere these days. So the latest round of content has been these fly fishing book reviews, and they're posted on YouTube. Of course, I mentioned them on the website, but I've also been putting them on Facebook, so you can just click on it and watch it there, and then as an Instagram reel. But if you watch on Instagram, it's edited down. You can only fit 3 minutes of content on there. So know that you can see a bit of it there and then go over to YouTube and watch the whole thing. But what I like about that, and again, one of the things I like the most about Casting Across is interaction, people giving me book recommendations, book reviews, ideas, and then, of course, other comments and questions, and every once in a while, an accusation. But I appreciate it. I don't say it enough. I really appreciate everyone who takes the time, not just to listen and subscribe and like and all that sort of stuff, which is super helpful, but those who do take the time to reach out. And whether it be nothing but good things or questions or constructive criticism, I really do appreciate it. And thank you for those who do it. This week on castingacross.com, the first article is called Beauty Over Broken. I don't know if you tried to get on the website Sunday morning or early afternoon, but it just absolutely collapsed. I still don't know what happened, and I am saying my prayers and praises that it was able to get fixed. But it was this real interesting juxtaposition of, the website crashing and being very concerned about all the content, and at the same time just coming home from church where we, held up my new little boy and thank God for him. And so it was this, beautiful moment, and then this of this really significant thing, and then this brokenness of this also significant thing, but something that's like 10 or 12 or 100 clicks down on the priority list. And so it's just a good reframing, for me. And hopefully if you read that, can kind of give you that perspective as well. Beauty over broken, and an awesome little picture of my little boy's hand, and some cute little sheets that we picked out for him. They got critters on them. Who doesn't like critters? Wednesday's article is another book review video, like I mentioned before, and this one's called Learning from Lefty, Top Fly Fishing Books. And I mentioned 2 books here. One's called Presenting the Fly, maybe more for beginners. Casting with Lefty Cray, maybe a little bit more for intermediate to advanced anglers. These are both big, beautiful, worthwhile books. And so here why I recommend them, and check them out over on YouTube or at castingacross.com. There's a link to Amazon, but these are also books you should probably be able to find at a used bookstore and at a good fly fishing book department at a fly shop. So this week's recommendation is not actually a thing, it's an event. So Orvis has a program called Tackle Tune-Up. If you have an Orvis store, so not a store that sells Orvis gear, an Orvis store, very different, nearby, they, in this late winter and early spring, I'm not sure how far it's going to go, and, some of the Orvis shops that I've known, and back when I worked at one, I would have been cool with doing this even well into the season. But they're running a program now where you bring your gear in, and they're going to help you do some cleaning of your reel. They're going to help with your line. They're going to replace your backing for free. Just look at stuff, look at knots, help tie knots. There's so many things that, they're not necessarily easy to do, especially line. In fact, today I despooled and respooled a reel while I was working. So I was in front of my computer, and it just wasn't super convenient. I could have gotten my drill out. I could have gotten one of my boys to hold it. It's just not the best way to do it. And what ends up happening is that your line and your backing doesn't go on great, and then you've got issues. But all that to say, if you go to Orvis's website, I'll put a link to this page, which is going to probably, disappear after a while because it's a promotional thing. But you can go to your local store and get your stuff taken care of. And they can show you how to do it so that if you have to do something in the middle of the season, then you can go ahead and do it. But definitely consider it. It's an awesome thing. And just, again, fly fishing industry folks are usually just good fly fishing folks. So definitely check it out. Again, link over at the show notes to this podcast page at castingacross.com. Thanks for listening to the Casting Across Fly Fishing Podcast. Please subscribe to your favorite podcast app and rate the podcast in iTunes and Spotify. Then head over to castingacross.com for 3 posts a week on the people, places, and things that go into the pursuit of fish.
Hit the road for fun and heartwarming fishing adventures with the Real American Road Trip.
I just want to hook up one time. I just need to hook up one time.
Catch the Waypoint Original Series every Tuesday at 9:30 p.m. Eastern on the Waypoint TV channel. Waypoint TV, your destination for outdoor entertainment.
I did get a bite. I have gotten a bite. I did feel it.
From dawn to dusk and every moment in between, Captain Justin Leake and Meredith McCord have an exciting adventure waiting in the water. Catch Chasing the Sun, Sundays at 10 a.m. Eastern on Waypoint TV. Waypoint TV, your destination for outdoor entertainment.